Hi, Mithun.
Hey, Sunil. How are you?
Excellent, Mithun. Great. And I think we've got you on a busy day with multiple back-to-back discussions. So thank you for taking out the time for this one.
Not at all, man. The pleasure's mine.
Absolutely. So I think before we start, wanted to briefly introduce you to the audience, though many of us would be aware of your work across organizations. But Mithun is a graduate from IIT Madras and then went on to Kellogg's to complete his master's. A lot of experience in the FMCG space as well with Kinsey and Unilever early in his career before moving on to consulting with McKinsey, and then took on some very giant roles in leading startups in India, starting with Myntra, where Mithun was the Chief Marketing, Analytics and Revenue Officer at the same time. So that's a lot going on, and really drove the Myntra growth story over there. And post that was the CEO at Lendingkart, and now is the Chief Transformation Officer at Microsoft India. This discussion is going to be on transformation, why it's required, and I think no one better than Mithun to run us through how India is transforming and why we should be looking at it much more holistically.
Hey, thanks, man. Embarrassing introduction. I'm a friend of Sunil's, Vikas and David. So let's start with that. That's kind of where we start from, and then the rest all is it happens to be. So thanks for that intro. I just heard I heard a part of what was being discussed in Daman. I think was it Damanji?
Yeah, Daman, yes.
Daman's leading. Also, people were interesting conversation about. If you have a high LTV, then feel free to spend on CAC. I actually wanted to ask him, saying, what are these high LTV products that he has in India? In India at all? I mean, there is no high LTV as far as I know. It always costs 400 rupees to acquire a customer on any channel, and then they all want to only spend 120 rupees. So I'm unclear exactly how that equation works. But that's been a running question in my life as to how do you make money in a value-conscious market where supposedly digital acquisition is supposed to be cost-effective, but not yet so. But thanks, Sunil. I'll try and keep. I understand we have half an hour. Is that right, Sunil?
Yes, that's right. And we'll be a few minutes for a discussion as well. After.
Sorry.
It'll be good to have a few minutes for discussion.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a deck, but it's about 40 slides, which obviously is not a great idea here. So we won't do that. Let me do I thought I'd theme it on transformation because a lot of the others would have been speaking specific on marketing, but depending on questions and discussion, happy to sort of get into any part of it in more detail as well. Very quickly, I think relevant to the audience, things which may be of interest, just sort of recapping, you sort of gave the detailed view, but let me just speak about parts which may be of interest to folks. In the course of the time that I've spent in multiple organizations, there are 2 or 3 things which I'll try and bring up here. One is, what is it meant to transform a little bit as a leader and hence, transform organizations? I'll use the Microsoft example to be able to bring that to life, but I'll try and cross-relate it to a couple of other places where I was at. I'm sure this is a much more digital forward or digital seeking audience. So during my time at Pepsi Co, where I led strategy for them for the India business, Pepsi Co at that point, and this is about 5-6 years back, used to spend about 17 to 18% of its marketing budget on digital channels. Lots of people in this group may laugh at that number as being too small, but at that point in time, and I think even now, it was best in class for Indian CPG. There were companies just spending sub 5%, and 18% was a very large number. And part of my role was sort of push and expand that frontier. That was one experience that we could sort of think about. Obviously, at Myntra, massive platform, 2 million DAU, 20 million MAU, 60 million ever, 120 ever touched, etc. There, the opportunity lead marketing, which was the user side, as to people don't know about Myntra, please show up on my platform, and then to lead revenue, which is, hey, you showed up, buy more and buy more often. That was really how I saw the 2 roles. And then analytics, which sort of brought all the data to bear, which allowed us to do it in a cost-effective manner and get as close to profitability as any e-commerce company has ever done in India. And so that was the second one. And then I did spend some time at Lendingkart, which was focused on MSMEs in the country, marketed to them, and to give out small ticket size working capital loans in complicated contexts of the country. So these are 3 experiences that may be relevant to questions that come. On transformation, I did have a deck. I'm wondering what's the easiest way. I didn't realize it's half an hour. I should thought it was 45, but let's do one thing. I'm going to try and present. Is there a way by which I could present from here? Sunil, very bad.
Would you like me to present? Happy to do that as well.
You should have used a much more superior service called Teams, Microsoft Teams. That would have been the right one to present on, no? But it's okay. For today, I'll adjust with this. Let's go with this. Can you...
Ekta, can you make Mithun?
No, I got it. Don't worry about it. I got it. Can you guys see my screen at this point?
It's just...
Yes, Mithun. Yeah.
Okay. Then let me use that to go to the top. I'll see if this can sort of... Trying to go over to the first slide. Just give me 1 second, folks. Sorry about that. One thing I've noticed with Zoom is if you present just the presentation, it takes a little longer to load. If you present your screen, it comes a little quicker. Okay, can you see the first slide?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll keep this short. See, so there's time for questions, and I gave you context in which you could ask me questions. This I will speak a little more about Microsoft, so you're clear about where I'm coming from. Arguably, in the last 25 years or so, one of the largest value-creating engines in the world, in terms of both for shareholders, stakeholders, community, and customers, as a company, one of the largest is clearly Microsoft. And it probably is the largest if you were to put a consistency filter to it. A lot of the other tech companies have come in and created value over time, but something which has done this over a significant period of time, continuous TRS improvement over a long period, I'd probably put Microsoft on top of the pile. And one of the reasons it's been able to do it so effectively has been its ability to continuously transform itself over a period. Hey guys, just give me 1 second. I'm just going to cut some noise. Just give me. Back the perils of working from home, HSR comes with its own noises. But let's go back.
Yeah, that's...
has been the fact that it has retransformed itself a bunch of times. Now, this is not about a Microsoft sell conversation. This is more about having spent the last 4 months at Microsoft, my learnings of having heard from lived experiences of folks and what has it taken to be a digitally transformed company. And even Microsoft has digitally transformed itself. And I'm sure a lot of companies today need to. I won't belabor points which this group knows. Okay, wait, I'm not able to move the screen. Hold on. Okay, you guys can see why transformation, why now? Can you all see the screen which shows why transformation, why now?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, perfect, thanks. Sorry, this thing moved. So, number one, why would you transform at all? And, let's use digital as the way by which we are transforming. There is a massive stimulus which comes at you. The stimulus can be COVID. It could be in 2008, a place where, the world sort of went topsy-turvy. It could be the fact that your company is getting acquired. It could be the fact that your company needs to acquire someone else. It could be the fact that you're just not making money and your business model doesn't work. It's a big, big stimulus. You respond with a certain set of actions, and that is the transformation. You recover, and then you reimagine what the future can be. Why is it actually most relevant at this point? There's a period where if you were to fast forward the next 10 years, at least 10% of the GDP of the world will likely come from purely tech-led answers. And I'm sure this group, given the nature of the conversation that social media is hosting, will be a tech-led sort of a group. And if you look at the growth of created GDP between now and 2030, it's going to be an even larger percentage than the 10%. Which brings you to a question on, so what does that mean? I'll use this and another slide, essentially. Won't do any more than that on slides. There's this question on, when you think about cloud, everyone thinks about cloud as the place where you store the information. And that is roughly true. But my realization on what has that meant has been to actually, is not about where do you store it and what information you store, but it's about how does that enable you to be able to use it to give yourself an edge in the market. Let me describe what I mean by that with a real example. So at Myntra, I describe my roles in marketing and revenue, which is, understanding the user and understanding the customer and then sort of taking care of analytics. One of my biggest frustrations as the revenue head was, I had to anyway manage the P&L. You had to finish your sale for the day, and you had to ensure the right marginal contribution, and you had to make sure, or variable contribution, depending on what your company calls it, and you had to make sure that you did it in a manner that's sustainable for the next 5 years. In that kind of a context, what we discovered was that and I used to sell what my buyers used to buy, right? There were buyers who would sort of negotiate with Levi's, with Lee, with someone else, or with, Nike, and what they bought was what I had to sell. And I would give them some signals, but eventually they had to go through a negotiation and buy. And if they bought too much, I would be stuck with old stock. If they bought too little, I would be in a place where I can't service the customer. And if they bought too little of the right thing, or they bought too much of the wrong thing. I said, that is really frustrating because it affects my ability to be able to sustain income. I said, how can we sort of make this better? And we said, hey, listen, we've got a lot of information. I spoke about 2 million DAU, 20 million MAU, 120 ever used, etc. at that point in time. And every one of them are coming to the platform. They come 4 times a year, big number for a impulse category like fashion. And they spend close to 12 minutes when they come, which is again a big number, for a impulse-based sort of lifestyle shopping experience. And I said, hey, listen, can I use that information effectively? And all that information exists on the cloud. Coincidentally, Myntra sat on the Azure cloud. This was way before I joined Microsoft, because the whole Flipkart group sits on the Azure cloud. But the discussion was, how do we leverage this data in an effective manner to create insights? And we said, can I use, what do they come in? There are swipe information, there are heart information, there are dislike information, there's transaction information, there are return information. Can I use all of that to predict what is the trend line and what are people likely to want to buy 3 months from now? And it may be as simple as predicting blocks or checks, maybe as simple as predicting paper fit or square fits. But that's at a simplistic level. But if you go down further, you can do brand, you can do cut, you can do size, you can do elements, all of those. And we also said, oh, this is fantastic information we have at our hand in our cloud. But frankly, there's even more information in the world. There's Pinterest, there's Insta fashion blogs, there's all of those, all of it's available publicly. Can I actually go through that? Can I scrape and pick that info, put that into the right format, leverage that to create information, and then drive my insight? And we ended up creating this SaaS platform called WhatUp. It was in the public domain, I think about 2 years back when I was there, and we shopped it to multiple people. And we in fact had H&M pay a subscription to use WhatUp to predict what they had to manufacture for their next season. Sitting in Bangalore, in Kudlugate, when we started out on this thing, little did we imagine that actually organizing the information and deriving insight would create a new revenue line for Myntra, which would be actually of value to the second largest retailer in the whole world. And that was actually the big difference from moving from cloud to edge, just for one example. Speaking of transformation, I'm going to use this as the last slide I will present because we're at 4:30 and I do want to have 10, 12 minutes for us to speak. I always think about transformation as one of 4 things or more of 4 things. Organizations which transform successfully start anywhere on this funnel and cover 2 of 4, 3 of 4, sometimes 4 of 4. And when I speak of transformation, I speak of a digital or sort of a way of doing business transformation. It could start with our customers and how we engage with them. A lot of this conversation, I think, from what little bit I picked up from Damanjeet's chat was about how we engage, what do we do, how much do we cost, what is our cost to acquire, what is my LTV that I get. And that's a big part of digital transformation because, Pepsi used to go to market by actually putting their products in the shelf and they used to put ATL ads. Can I engage with those customers digitally? Can I actually influence them in places where they're consuming content digitally? Can I give them an interactive experience? Can they sort of walk around, discover the product? Can they see that on the phone? And can they then consume it? So engaging customers is a easy, typical, sexy starting point. It could also be optimizing operations. For me, when I joined Lendingkart, which is a digital fintech lender and one of the more respected ones in the country, what I discovered was it was a 5-year-old company when I joined. And what I discovered was our customer acquisition was digital, the usual, right? We were able to either put out Facebook ads, or whatever forums they were looking at, or they came to a Paisa Bazaar, Bank Bazaar, and that was the digital acquisition channel. Or they showed up directly on my website or my app. But that was that. I used to disburse entirely sort of, digitally because it goes through a direct bank-to-bank transfer. I would collect through an e-NACH, so that was digital. My KYC was digital, all of that. But in between, I had a factory floor. When I went into the companies, it was a discovery, which is the first person would collect the bank statements, do a set of checks, email it to the second set of teams, who would then go through their tax records, this, that, etc. They would have a manual Excel that they would be tracking between A and B. Would from there go to the next thing, and there would be a credit underwriting check. Then there would be a next thing where they will look through their ITR returns. From there, the next, and then they will hand over to the team which goes and acquire. This may sound strange, but this is, by the way, the truth in a lot of sort of startups which have grown very quickly in our country over the last few years. So you could start. My first call to business was to use tech to optimize operations, not to engage customers, not to employ, not product. First was this. And we moved from a 21-day TAT to a 1-day TAT. We moved from a loss rate of 98% to a loss rate of about 50%. 2 to 50, 21 to 1. And this happened over the course of a year. So tech can also start from the non-sexy side of business, which is optimizing operations. And it was a big, big shift that we did. Or it can be transform products. I mean, today I've been with, we gave out at Lendingkart, we ended up building on our platform to give out products which, which are digital loans and digital quick access credit cards or digital lines of credit. At Myntra, again, powered from a Microsoft platform, was able to give out a completely differential product experience. If you were to buy a shoe, you could just take a photograph of your foot and it would be able to predict the size that you required. And then you could also have a 3D virtual mirror, which will help you to design your fit. So transforming products is a very different order of magnitude, very cool stuff, tougher to do with the right sort of platform as a service option. You can actually get there. Or it can be purely to empower employees. When people are going through COVID at Microsoft, the concept of the first responder changed to a concept of a digital responder. We were able to sort of help and empower Apollo, Vedanta, the set of folks who are helping transform the oxygen transport in the country, be able to create the systems on which they could build their quick response answers. And by the way, for our own employees, also build out what my quick response solution will be. So this will be the last slide that I present, which is if you do want to think about transformation, where do you start and what all do you want to cover? You could start anywhere among the four. You ideally want to cover all four at some point in time for you to create dramatic value. Or you could cover 2 of the 4 if you have only that much to do, or 3 or 4, or all of them. And I found that organizations start at one or the other. That's kind of where I will stop. Depending on questions, I may pick up a few other slides, but let me pause here and ask for questions if there are any, because I've got a 40-page deck and it won't really get covered here, and we'll just sort of all sort of speak very quickly and not really answer any questions. So let me pause here. I'll take questions.
And definitely, Mithun, I had a few questions while we, and from the rest of us, if you have any questions, please share it in the chat and definitely take it up. I think the last slide which you mentioned, right, there's so much transformation happening across sectors, right, from retail, all the brands coming up. We've discussed a little bit of the Trashio models which are coming up in the D2C space. But even Fintech, across segments, you're seeing Zerodha, blockchain. So in your last slide where you mentioned employees, team members, operations, sourcing, how does like an organization get started in that transformation journey, right? And I think you have the growth mindset. Is there like a transformation mindset and roadmap which makes it simple?
So it's a fair question, Sunil. See, all of the examples you mentioned, I'll actually then speak to this audience, right? So I was speaking just earlier to a large automotive major going through a major sort of org digital transformation, just literally before this chat. And there, frankly, the imperative is different. For this audience, you gave me Zerodha, you spoke about Trashio models coming into India. In all of those, frankly, they're coming customer product first, right? So that it's not yet transformed. It's almost like they're transformed. It's not their organization they're transforming. They are either transforming a go-to-market, or they are transforming a value chain, or they are transforming a customer experience. And often, when you do all three together, then there is actual significant value. So if you take Uber, go-to-market change, you can book it on the phone. The value chain, obviously, they felt there was incredible amount of free time available to the drivers and the cars, and they said there was idle capacity, so that was the second thing. and they transformed the customer experience because it came to be a different. So all three changed together. If I take the largest of our value creating examples, that's that. The same with Thrasio, right? Thrasio is actually transforming not the customer's experience, they're transforming the entrepreneur's experience, right? An entrepreneur grew a product to 1 million or 5 million, maxed out on their capability to handle supply chain, performance marketing, true growth marketing, but had created a beautiful product which is loved by consumers. Consumers continue to order it on whatever the platform is, Amazon, Flipkart, whatever it might be that they're ordering it on. Yes, it's all Amazon. What Thrasio came in and said is, I will change your go-to-market, Mr. Entrepreneur. Let me buy it from you, and then I will take that market much faster. I will do the growth hacking and this and that on that. So your go-to-market, which was sort of painful climb, I will turbocharge like this, but I will buy your product. That was one. They transformed the value chain there. The value chain said there will be so much money given to the entrepreneur, there will be so much money held back by the platform, there will be this much value given to the customer. When I buy it and turbocharge it, I get a much larger share of the first part of that pie, and the first part of the pie expands dramatically. And I have pricing decisions which can change value created both for platform and consumer very dramatically. So it changes that value chain answer. And likewise, it changes the customer experience in this case, purely from a delight to the entrepreneur, but it also changes, by the way, for the final consumer. He just gets more of the product he likes. So you could use this frame in any case. I know I came in with the view of transformation. For me, there's not transformation in your case, right? In most of what we are talking about with this audience, it is actually the business imperative on how you use digital to disrupt. And it would be either product or customer first. Then you would enable employee and you would enable operations. That comes later. But in typical early stages, it's these two.
Understood. So you're saying start with the customer or the product and then build the other parts of transformation. That's what you're seeing a lot.
If you're disrupting industry, you have to start at either customer or product. And typically you have to start at customer, the product then follows. So one or the other. And for me, three things disrupt there: GTM, value, or the value chain, value creation, and sort of the final experience of the consumer.
Understood. And are you seeing technologies, Mithun, are you seeing those transform some of these aspects for, especially a lot of our audience is also from digital first retail brands or, fintech brands selling digital products, right? So it's either education or financial products. It's all online delivery also.
When you say our technology is changing it, yes, definitely it's changing. Without using too many big words in the answer, right? I think when you're cloud first, as opposed to being when you're cloud native to start, which is what all of these companies are, it allows you to be able to much more seamlessly access information, not limited to purely your own box, but multi-boxes, right? And it does it seamlessly. It sounds theoretically easy, practically very difficult. This may sound very simplistic, but in 2003, when I was sales manager for Andhra Pradesh, had I had the ability, this may sound very, very simplistic, but I'll just make this come alive. Had I had the ability to cross-map my consumption pattern with consumption patterns of 6 other types of allied categories, with zip codes, with something else, linked back to potential, and then this was something which I didn't have the capability of doing. And this is Unilever, Hindustan Lever at 2003. That's why it sounds simple to do, but nobody does this. And it completely changes how you think of where you deploy. At Myntra, this was like level 1 question. This wasn't even a level 20 question, right? Level 1, because the company started cloud native. The company never started, they may have started with multiple Excels floating, but the intent was always digital first. So you're always working with data. And so for me, from our technology shaping, yes, the fact that you're cloud native changes the nature of looking outside your box. The fact that you use, again, big words, AI, ML, etc. The fact that you use a continuous learning way of looking at data changes how the industry is able to have impact. That's how I would position it, as opposed to saying, it's about one technology or the specific other. The fact that our collaboration tools on technology are immediate instant feedback becomes the third thing. There's that, I forget who said this thing, but it's a funny line, which I think it was Satya only said this. In today's day and age, the big problem that consumers have with instant gratification is that it comes too late, right? And this is so both from a collaboration and our feedback loop question is just much quicker. So all of that changes the dynamic, and all of them have opportunity for value creation if it is leveraged to create, value for us, or it can destroy value too. So it'll destroy value to people who aren't able to quickly adapt to that. You see this in a lot of our early erstwhile brick and mortar industries, solution share. It creates value for people who are adapting to it and who are actually selling, based on one of these or the other theory.
Right, Mithun. I think one interesting question from what you are also reflecting is are these technologies also making it kind of easier to start up today and create your own brands very quickly, or big boy advantage is to some extent reduced in this environment through transformation?
So my opinion is this, right? I honestly think a startup is a startup once it has a product market fit. Before that, it is just an idea, right? Before that, an idea is an idea, and ideas have abounded forever. Okay, now the speed to product market fit via digital acquisition is faster. I don't necessarily say it's easier. I would say it's faster. So your speed to that gets much quicker. However, it doesn't take away the advantages of the larger organization, because the larger organizations are still able to leverage scale, leverage all of their economies if they are digital first. The only thing it does is it raises the bar on agility dramatically, which didn't exist in the past, because your speed to get to product market fit and your speed to burn through experimentation is faster. And we sit in an environment where money is chasing opportunity than the other way around. So enough money to fund experimentation. I think in the absence of agility, the larger ones will die. But agile large ones still have the advantages of scale. But those are few and far to come by.
No, absolutely, Mithun. I think we're really out of time, but I think one personal question, Mithun, I think when we had previous discussions, I've been amazed at your ability to, apply first principles thinking to various topics, right? So how do you, kind of abstract out and look at first principles thinking, especially for these kind of transformations, supply chain, go-to-market? What's your secret?
So, Surya, I don't know about my secret. I think it's necessity is the mother of all invention anyway. So I've had the privilege and the challenge of having moved industries a few times. And frankly, that has resulted in and that has necessitated the need to have not a continuous performance mindset, but much more a continuous learning mindset, because frankly, there is no hubris. I don't know anything about what Microsoft does. Even to understand its products have taken me, it's still an ongoing journey. And I was that way when I showed up in Myntra. So the idea would be to do that. I think the simplest answer would be to, at least for me, what's worked is to really lean on my teams to teach me, and then help them in wherever I'm able to enable, plus sort of resource them adequately and do pattern matching, which potentially they're not able to do because of being buried in the day-to-day work. That is about all that I have at least taken away as the privilege of these roles. The challenge is to you can sort of changing context a lot.
You always continue to be humble, Mithun, and I think thank you so much. It's really been a privilege, and I know it was a pretty packed day for you, but really appreciate you taking out time. Any parting advice to brands, who joined us today on their transformation journey or for growth as well?
No, Sunil, I don't know whether I call it parting advice. We've had a couple of good and mutually value-creating interactions, both at Myntra and then with a couple of other places that I respect. I think the idea for me, it's the what to do and the how to do often gets simple. Over a long period of time, especially for brands and entrepreneurs, etc., what has mattered to me is with whom you do it. And I think that with the only thing that I say, typically people don't spend as much time on thinking about. I think the what and the how eventually get clear. Nobody's solving anything on rocket science at all. That's really the only, and I don't think it's advice. It's just my own reflection on where I stand.
Right. Yeah, no, I think today Elon Musk has shown, actually you can even apply some simple principles to rocket science and get, to unimaginable places. So.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, I know our timing moved a bit. I want to appreciate the fact that you guys were flexible. Thank you for doing that. Otherwise, we would have had 45 minutes. Sorry about that. It just meant a few things moved on my side. But thanks for doing this. And it was a pleasture to
Thank you
speak
so
with the
much,
group.
Mithun. Really appreciate it, and have a good evening. And Vikas, over to you for our next amazing session with Tanvi.
See you, Vikas. See you, Sunil.
Thanks, Mithun, for the session and lots of